All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. I'm Nick, and this is our Cowboys Daily Show. A lot of great news to get to you this Monday morning. Of course, padded practice. The first padded practice of training camp was on Sunday. A lot of great news and updates when it comes to that. We're talking injury updates, some good, some bad, contract situations, and some interesting commentary going on right now. And of course, at the end of this video, we'll answer any questions and comments from our prior video. But to get things going like we like to on this show, a little palate cleanser with some interesting stats, a stat of the day, so to speak. So when we look at the Dallas Cowboys 2025 projections and their odds and what they're going to do, I think it's important, and I think we all understand this, that everything comes down to, as it does with any team, the quarterback position, and directly, of course, with Dallas, it involves Dak Prescott. And one of the things people forget when they look at the 2024 Dallas Cowboys and they look at the injuries and just the disappointment of the season was that when Prescott was healthy, it was a disappointing year for him, especially compared to his phenomenal 2023. And when I pull up this number here, it really stands, or pull up this chart here, excuse me, it really stands out. So this is for you stat nerds out there. This is just a bell curve or a normal distribution of Dak Prescott's seasons in his career. The x-axis is his PFF passing grade. And what you will notice is that the two extremes, on the positive and negative, a negative on the left, positive on the right there, are the 2023 season where he was stupendous and 2024 season where he was not before he got hurt. So the natural thing that's going to happen is some regression to the mean. Now, the 2024 season was an outlier. It was a great season for Prescott. A lot of people projected that he would go a little bit more towards the mean. They wouldn't project he went all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which he did. I think statistically speaking, probabilistically speaking, he's going to move towards the middle. He's going to be back to what he normally is in his career. 2021 Dak, 2019 Dak, 2018 Dak, 22 Dak, right? You're going to get some combination of that. It may not be as good as 2023. Who knows? It might be. The additions of Pickens could maybe go a long way in helping Prescott reclaim that status. But again, if you look at these numbers here and really focus on the fact that 23 and 24 for Prescott were such extremes, expect a regression to the mean, which based on how he played in 2024, you're going to get closer to a Dak Prescott performance that won you, 10 games in 2018, that won you 12 and 21, that won you 12. I know he missed some time in 22. You're going to get kind of that level of performance. So as bad as it was last year for Dak in the offense, statistically speaking, he's more likely to have a big jump this season. Again, regression to the mean there. All right, cool little stat. Let's jump into our first story of the day. This is talking about Jaydon Blue. I think it's a really interesting story. This is according to Patrick Walker at Voice of the Star. He interviewed Brian Schottenheimer, and Schottenheimer said the speed, the dynamic playmaking ability, he's a dual threat guy. He doesn't need a lot of space to make guys miss. He's uncanny. But what I like is the professionalism he's shown at this camp. All right, there's a couple things to unpack there. Obviously, Jaydon Blue has been doing some good things across the board. He's been stacking a lot of good practices together, whether it's running, catching the football out of the backfield. He had a viral deep one-handed catch. He had a lot of nice runs. Media, coaches, fans alike are saying, hey, Blue's doing a lot of good things, which is important because the running back position, frankly, since 2022 has been really bad. Since Tony Pollard had that injury in the playoff game against San Francisco, he hasn't been the same. He was okay in 23. Obviously, the issues the Cowboys had at running back in 24 were really, really bad. So they're relying on a lot of veterans and Jaydon Blue to step up, maybe even Phil Maffa, who knows, to be a really improved running back room this season. And it looks like Blue is on that track. But notice what Schottenheimer added to the end of this here. And this is why Schottenheimer is such a good coach, because he's with it. He understands, he gets it, right? I think guys like Mike McCarthy, even Jason Garrett, even Wade Phillips, they didn't understand how to play the media. Bill Parcells, Jimmy Johnson, they were phenomenal at this. That last sentence there. But what I like is the professionalism he's shown at this camp. For people who aren't familiar, there were reports coming out prior to camp, completely unfounded, and we covered it on this channel and said it was probably bogus, that Jaydon Blue didn't have a professional work ethic, that he was lazy, right? He was unprofessional, in other words. And that was the big thing going out in the media. Because it's Dallas and because it's the Cowboys, it got a lot of play. There were no substance to it. There was no reports to it. There were people actually inside the Cowboys organization and teammates, such as Wanye Thomas, saying, yeah, that's BS, that's not true, that's totally fake. But it still got some noise. It still got a lot of play in the media. So Schottenheimer, he's not oblivious. He's following all of these things. He understands to be the guy, the leader of his team, to support these players, especially these young guys. He knows they're seeing these media hits. He knows they're seeing these attacks. So what does he do? He goes out of his way to comment on his professionalism, saying, hey, listen, that's what I like about him the most, is the professionalism. I guarantee you this comment alone just bought Jaydon Blue's loyalty, at least this season, probably his entire Cowboys career. Blue came into this camp with a chip on his shoulder. He came into this camp wanting to prove those doubters wrong, prove that media hit piece wrong. So far, he's doing it. But I guarantee you that stung. That was something that just ate at his craw, Jaydon Blue's craw. It was something that really impacted him. You could clearly tell by his response and his teammates' responses. But when you look at Schottenheimer saying, listen, this guy's been nothing but professional. He's a pro's pro as a rookie at this point. I guarantee you Jaydon Blue looks at Schottenheimer and says, that guy's got my back, right? Using the media. Parcells did it. Jimmy Johnson did it famously on numerous occasions. The 93 NFC Championship game, of course, is a great example of just that. Schottenheimer is using that here as well. Great job by him. Great move by the Cowboys head coach. All right, next story here. This is according to Ian Rappaport at Rap Sheet. The Cowboys and standout tight end Jake Ferguson have agreed to terms on a 4-year extension worth $32 million in new money with $30 million guaranteed. The deal was done by agent Jack Becta. Ferguson gets a $12 million signing bonus. Dallas takes care of a young star. All right, so this is a kind of a bold move at sort of face value because Ferguson had a disappointing 2024. I think the Cowboys are betting, probably rightly so. I mentioned the Prescott graphic in terms of our stat of the day. Maybe tomorrow I'll have to do one with Ferguson. Is that what we saw from 24 with Ferguson because of the injuries and all the other issues Dallas has? That was the aberration. Now, 2023, when he was a star, maybe that was a positive aberration. So he's somewhere in between. In 2023, he was a top 3, top 5 tight end in terms of production, playmaking ability. This dollars today makes him a top 7, top 8 tight end. So again, they're not paying him the way he played in 2023, and they're not paying him the way he played in 2024. They kind of found some middle ground here. They're also betting he's going to have a big 2025, or at least a productive 2025, and if he were to hit the open market, he would become a lot more expensive. I like this move from the Cowboys here. I know a lot of people are talking about why not Parsons and things like that. That's just more money. There's more complexities involved. That's resetting the market. Look, if Parsons wanted to be paid like the 3rd best pass rusher, I guarantee you the Cowboys would have already done it. Here, Ferguson agreed to a deal that make him, I think, 7th in annualized cap hit among all tight ends. Not even close to resetting the market. Great job by Dallas getting it done. Again, you're talking about stability in the organization, a better offseason than a lot of people give him credit for. The Parsons overhang is very real, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But the reality is, with the moves they've made, solid additions, solid re-signings, Oso Odigizua, for example, Bill Ferguson in the mix. You look at the great moves through the draft, the solid free agents, the trade of Pickens. Across the board, it's been a really good job by the Cowboys leadership. Not perfect, very flawed a lot of the time, but significantly better than in prior years. Again, the Parsons deal is sort of the final nail in the coffin to put the past to past here. We'll get some latest on that in a little bit, but I think what we're seeing from Dallas from a leadership perspective is significantly better than what we've seen in years past. That's just my opinion. All right, let's get into some bummer news here. Let's go to this report from Adam Schefter. Sources, this came out just not long ago. Cowboys guard Rob Jones, who has been working with the starting unit during the early part of training camp, broke a bone in his neck during Sunday's practice and is now expected to miss 2 to 3 months per Todd Archer, the Cowboys reporter, and me. Wow, this is not obviously this stinks for Jones. He's a veteran, right? This was an opportunity for him to maybe earn some playing time. I think Booker was expected to be the guy to starter at guard. And now it is Booker. And I think when a lot of people look at the selection of Booker, if anyone was very pro Booker, you feel very vindicated. Now, if you're anti Booker, you may change your tune a little bit. Because can you imagine, if you hadn't used a first round selection and you lose out on Rob Jones, and now what you're throwing Brock Hoffman in there at guard theoretically, and then BB's a center, and then you have like no depth, right? You're one injury away from total collapse on the interior offensive line. I mentioned yesterday that if Booker can live up to the hype, BB taking a big step forward, and Tyler Smith, that's a championship offensive line with some good depth involved, an interior offensive line. Now with this injury, a lot of that depth is gone, so a lot of pressure is going to be on Booker. One of the good things, though, is that there's been reportedly, and there's been just pretty much confirmed at this point, that Booker and Jones have had a great relationship. Jones working with Booker, teach him the ropes, be there mentally for him, be a support, sort of a mentor, an offensive line mentor for him. So the good news is Jones can still be that for Booker. I think it's just going to be a lot of pressure on the young guard out of Alabama to step up and get the job done early. It's very, very similar to what we saw with Guyton last year, kind of forced into the lineup. Now, granted, Booker started his first string reps much earlier than Guyton. Guyton never got first string reps until the injury. Booker has gotten the vast majority of first string reps since he came to Dallas. So he's got more preparedness than Guyton did. But a little concerning here because having Jones as sort of a safety net was one of the things to potentially rely on. That's gone till probably October, if we're being totally honest. The good news is, maybe even later, who knows. But the good news is, Jones, Booker have a great working relationship. Jones can keep working with the young guard, get him ready for week one. And now guess what? The Cowboys leadership, coaching staff, they now have a clear mission. There's no more competition. It's all about preparing Booker to be the starting guard week one against Philadelphia. That's what the mission has become. The good news is they got time to do it, right? We're at July 28th when I'm filming this. So again, they've got a long time to get it done. The mission is clear. The goal's in place. Now they got to execute. All right, next story here. This is according to Tommy Yarish, another injury development. Rookie third-round cornerback Revel Jr. is going through some individual work on the opposite field during the team period. This was yesterday. There's been a video making the rounds of the young corner. He's just doing some backpedal drills and catching. He looks awkward and a little goofy, a little unsure of his injury. I know a lot of people are like, yeesh, that's not great. And it is true. I don't think he's close to returning, right? And this is what I mentioned in yesterday's video. And like, oh my goodness, he's getting some individual work. Does that mean he's close to becoming full go? And I'm like, I don't think so. I think he's going to get off PUP in the next couple weeks. I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to slowly get some practice reps. I don't know if he'll play in a preseason game. If he does, the absolute earliest will be limited action in the third preseason game. I think the goal for me is that he's actually 100% healthy for the regular season week one. Now, I don't think he's going to play or start significantly, but just the fact that he's going to be available, he can be full go, get maybe a few reps of special teams, maybe in some 5 DB situations a little later in the season. Remember, you drafted Revel in the third round, not because you needed an elite corner today, right? You got Diggs at Bland today, assuming Diggs can come back from injury okay, which, by the way, he looked pretty good in rehab doing some individual drills. So there's a better than 0% chance he's ready week one, which would obviously be big. Hopefully Diggs and Bland together would be nice. Obviously, that doesn't happen a whole lot with the injuries Dallas has had. But when it comes down to Revel, he's not a guy that you said, we need him to start day one. He's not the first round pick. That's why you got him in the third round. He's a guy that basically is, can he overcome the injury, get rehab successfully, and be ready by the second half of this season and become a key player in the future? That's what the selection of Revel was all about, and it still is trending in that direction. So I think the good news with Revel is that he's progressing. When it comes to injuries and a severe knee injury, you just want progression. You want things going in the right direction. Little setbacks can happen, but you don't want major setbacks. Take your time. That's what the Cowboys are doing. I think this is good news here. Remember, you don't necessarily need Revel to start week one. Look, you don't want this to happen, but if you have Bland, and let's say even Diggs is hurt, if you have Bland and as one of your corners, you got Kyrie Lam as the other, and you got maybe Izzy, or you got Andrew Booth, who's doing some good things, although I'm not 100% sold on him as your 4 corners to start things off. That's not ideal, not even close. But I think you can survive, right? Because then you get Diggs will come back soon. Butler may come back soon. And then, of course, you'll have Revel may come back soon. So the cavalry is coming. I think the question is the timing of it. Diggs being ready for week one, to me, is the big thing to potentially happen. Don't rush Diggs, though, and certainly don't rush Revel. He is a long-term play for the Cowboys. I'm still excited to see what happens once he goes full go in practice. Again, take your time, kid. Don't rush it. Big things up front coming for you later in your career. All right, next report here. This is from Clarence Hill Jr., talking about the Micah Parsons situation. He reported, Jerry Jones said Cowboys fans were louder last year saying pay CD than they did saying pay Micah. He said it probably because CeeDee Lamb wasn't in camp. Yeah, so for anyone who wasn't aware, when Jerry Jones was giving a little speech or was just around the practice field, there were people yelling and chanting, pay Micah, trying, hey, Jerry, pay Micah, get Micah Parsons' deal done. And Jerry Jones asked about it. He says, yeah, they probably were a little louder last year, talking about CeeDee Lamb. And one of the things I like and hate about Jerry Jones, and you have to respect it, there's very few executives in the NFL, owners in the NFL that are like this. He does not care at all what the fan base thinks, at all, which in some ways is really good because the fan base, as a fan, I'm wearing the shirt, right, wearing the star. As a fan, like, I want the owner to listen. I want the GM to listen. But also as a fan, I also understand I can be a little short-sighted. I can be, a little, bench him, cut him, he stinks. And, you don't want the owner, the GM, the leader of the team to make this short-sighted decision. So it goes both ways, but I can really appreciate that Jones just does not care at all. He's going to do things his way. Whatever the fan base says or how they act or how happy or mad they get, he completely disregards it, which you got to give him credit. A lot of owners don't do that. We've seen this. The Jaguars owner has made changes based on fan outcry. 49ers have done it in the past as well. Arthur Blank in Atlanta has done that, right? You can go through 9 out of 10 owners. They've made a massive decision based on, Davis with the Raiders, right? You can go down the list. The vast majority of them, if there's massive fan outcry or massive fan upheaval, then they make changes, right? They just do it to appease the fan base. They feel like they have to, which maybe in some ways they do. But Jerry Jones, to his credit, doesn't do it. Now, you can argue whether it's the right move or the wrong move in this instance, but I can appreciate it. A leader, an executive, the guy at the top of the food chain saying, listen, I am the guy calling the shots. You may like it, you may not, but I'm in charge, not you. And look, he's got the guts to say, I'm the guy, which means you get the credit and you get the criticism. There's been a lot of criticism of the last 30 years, and he's taking it on full bore, and he's not changing. I mean, as much as you may love or hate Jerry Jones, you got to respect that. All right, next article here. All right, this is talking about Trayvon Diggs here. Getting into the report, it's really hard to see. This is from Todd Archer. I'll kind of read off for you guys so you guys can at least hear what it says. Archer reported Trayvon Diggs didn't have a time frame on when he would get on the field. Neither does Jerry Jones or coach Brian Schottenheimer. Diggs, who was on PUP, went through some drills with strength coach Harold Nash Sunday, but Jones is glad Diggs around. And this is what Jerry Jones said, again, courtesy of Archer. It's good that he's out there. He's talking to these younger guys, and where we are, especially at corner, we need him and his experience out there talking to these guys. I'll assure you that the minute that he's able to go, I'm counting on him, and we're counting on him being a big addition. Yeah, so you talk about Diggs' development as a leader, I think is really important. And there's been some criticism, I think a little unwarranted, about Diggs maybe not being a good leader, not a good locker room guy in the past. And I think it's not really necessarily fair. Look, there are some positions and there are some players that are the team captain, the rah-rah guy, the emotional leader a little bit. That, to me, that's like the middle linebacker of the defense kind of thing, sometimes defensive lineman. You have sort of the field general, which on offense, which is the quarterback, obviously. But corners and wide receivers, to me, they aren't guys that you want to be the rah-rah leaders. They're just a different breed. They behave and act differently. All the guys I played with in college, these corners and receivers, they were not these sort of speech types. These were not these sort of just, like you see in the movies, getting everyone excited, the big locker room stuff. That just wasn't who they were. And I think the most important thing with that is you got to be authentic if you're going to be a leader. And Diggs, at this point, is sort of a guy, he connects with people, right? Him and CeeDee Lamb have a great relationship. Him and evidently a lot of the corners, him and Micah Parsons have a great relationship. I think that's really important. You talk about a culture in a locker room, you need all types. One of the things that's kind of funny to me, at least when I played, is that there'd be a couple guys that were like the clear locker room rah-rah guys, and they were there with wannabe rah-rah guys that would try and take on leadership stuff and be very loud and vocal. And it was just annoying, right? Because the locker room can't be just full of a bunch of guys screaming and yelling, delivering a Braveheart speech every 30 seconds. That's dumb. That's idiotic. It falls fake. It destroys the locker room. It takes all kinds. It takes all people who are like, hey, I'm the emotional leader. There are some people that are like, hey, I'm a guy that works with the young guys, or hey, I'm just a quiet, I'll let my work do the talking. I'll lead by example, right? It takes all kinds. Hey, I'm the cerebral guy. I'm the smart guy. You got to have everyone find their niche based on who they authentically are, and then just be the best version of that they can be. It sounds like Diggs is evolving into that role. He's not necessarily an elder statesman, right? He was only drafted in 2020, but he's working with these younger corners, has a great relationship with the players. I think that's really important because this cornerback room, like I mentioned ago, they're going to be battle tested with these injuries. Having everyone on the same page, little us against the world mentality, I think is going to be really important. Diggs showing up, being available, being present, I like to see that. And again, if he can be ready week one, full go, huge addition as well. But his growth as a leader in his specific niche, I think is a good sign as well. All right, next report here. This is probably my favorite post I saw. This was a guy named Dan Rogers. He goes at Danny Phantom 24. It's his Twitter X handle. And he said something, and I reposted it on X because I thought it was really insightful and really important. He said, I have a couple of questions for Cowboys fans. Do you want the front office to give in right now and pay Micah? That's question one. Number two, what is his current asking price? If you don't know the answer to number two, then you don't know the answer to number one. Outstanding point. This is absolutely outstanding. All of the people that are very hypercritical of we got to pay Parsons now, Jerry Jones has to get it now. You don't know what Parsons and his group are asking for. What if Micah Parsons is asking for $100 million a year? He's not, but what if he theoretically is? Should Jones give him that money? What if he's asking for $90 million, $80 million, $70 million, right? There's a point where it's too much and you agree, let's say it's $80 million. Oh, he's not worth $80 million a year. That's way too much. Okay, well, where is that line of demarcation? Where is that, okay, this is too much money for Parsons. Is it $80 million? But yeah, obviously. Was it $70 million? Yeah. Is it $60 million? Yeah, too much. $50 million? Yeah, too much. $45 million? Still too much. 44 million, right? It becomes a much tougher deal. Where do you find that line of demarcation? That's hard to do. And if you don't know where Parsons' team is, right, they could be way out of left field, then you have no idea what Jones should do or what Jones is doing, right? Stephen Jones took some heat yesterday. He says, listen, we want to pay Micah, but Micah has to want to get paid. And I do think that's, a lot of people said, what the heck is he doing? I do think that's an important point. You don't know what they're asking. The Parsons camp could be asking for $55 million a year, a fully guaranteed contract. Do you want to be the Cleveland Browns? Remember, before Deshaun Watson's injury and all his weird legal stuff, he was a star in the National Football League, one of the top future faces of the NFL, elite franchise quarterback. And the Browns, obviously, he had the injuries and the concerns. They still needed him so desperately to be what he showed in Houston. Fully guaranteed quarterback, buku monies, a lot of draft picks, total disaster contract for Cleveland. Do you want to be the Browns? Do you want to be the Browns? Well, how about the Raiders? They gave Christian Wilkins a huge deal, right? Now they're dealing with all that drama because of some locker room and discussion issues with rehabs and surgeries and things like that. Those are weird deals. Those are very isolated incidences, and Parsons doesn't have any of those foibles that we can see so far, at least. I don't think he does. But there is the reality is that once you commit that much capital, you're stuck. You've already committed, right? There's some ways out of some guaranteed money and some restructuring, but if you've agreed to give whatever the player wants, if Parsons wants $50 million a year with 80% guaranteed, the moment you sign, you're stuck. And if Parsons, for whatever reason, doesn't live up to his full end of the bargain, you're screwed. And the Cowboys know this, right? And Parsons knows this. So if he's way out of left field with his contract demands, you have to be willing, if you're Jerry Jones or any NFL leadership team, to sit there and say, listen, man, you're way out of left field. We want to sign you, right? We want to sign you for, let's say they want to sign him for 41. I'm making it up, $41 million a year. But Parsons wants 55 a year. The Jones, what are you going to do if you're Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones? Well, we'll meet you at 54. No, or we'll meet you halfway at 48. No, of course not. You're like, listen, we're not going to mortgage our future. Like, let's meet in the middle. Let's get it done. I think that will happen sooner rather than later, honestly. But I think this is a very insightful point by Darren Rogers. If you're on Twitter, X, you should go find this handle and follow him. It's a really, really smart point. Good job, Dan Rogers here, being very insightful and just getting away, and I mentioned this yesterday, just from the senseless Jerry Jones bashing. I feel like it's a great way to get clicks, likes, and engagement on social media. Just say Jerry Jones sucks, and you get 1 million followers, right? I think that's stupid. You have to take the right approach. Again, if you've never made payroll, if you've never managed a team in terms of not like a football team, but like a team in the workforce or something like that, then you don't know how important these kind of considerations are. There's a lot of people that haven't. They just say, well, why can't Jerry Jones pay Micah Parsons? There's more factors at play here. Rogers here does a great job at Danny Phantom 24 answering them. This is a really good post by him. Make sure you give him a follow. Really good job, Danny Phantom 24. All right, that's what I have for the news today. Let's take a look at the comments here. Got a few comments. There's just a few random stuff here, but I'll just mention this is at CogsJ84. He's asking if Revel is ready to go. That's huge. Yeah, I don't think he will be. I mentioned this before. I don't think you expect him to. I mean, if he is, that's awesome, right? I agree with you. If he is ready, fantastic. I just don't think he will be. I think the thing for me is he 100% medically cleared by week 1, right? Not that he's actually physically, emotionally, mentally ready to start or contribute. Is he 100% medically cleared, full confidence by week 1? Then he can start practicing, get some special teams rep. Maybe after the bye week, then he gets integrated more, right? Again, Revel, draft pick, young guy, long-term play. A little bit different than Diggs, who's obviously being paid a lot of money. That's more short-term. We need results now. Revel is cheap, long-term play. Let it take its time. Let it take its course. But I do agree. If he's ready, absolutely massive. This is a comment here from @Mike Manolo. He said, injury-filled season that decimated your chances of winning, what, an extra 2 games? Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between 7-10 and 9-8. It's a winning season, right? That's the difference between missing the playoffs and maybe making the playoffs, right? And that's what it's all about. It's all about getting in, right? The Giants under Eli Manning proved that twice. Aaron Rodgers has won Super Bowl with Green Bay. They went 10-6 during the regular season, right? You just get into the postseason, things can happen, right? The Commanders made it to the NFC Championship game. They were a wild card, right? This happens all of the time, guys, where if you just get into the postseason, things can happen. Now, we get used because it's Dallas and it's so much postseason disappointment that Dallas getting into the postseason means disaster happens. Romo drops the snap. You throw the interception in the end zone against the Giants. Creighton's drop earlier in the game. You have the 3 turnovers against Minnesota. You have the 3 back-to-back final regular season week 17 losses to lose the NFC East. You have the the Dez didn't catch it. You had the Rodgers throw and kick in 16. You had the Rams running the football over Dallas in 18. You had obviously the 49ers issues in 21, 22, and the Packers in 23, right? There's been so much disappointment in terms of postseason that the idea of just getting in gets you a chance is lost on a lot of Cowboys fans. Just get into the dance, man. Things can happen. It happens all the time. Teams make runs. Teams go on special runs. The Chiefs won their last Super Bowl 2 years ago. They won 11 games during the regular season, right? They were really struggling. A lot of people in 2023, this was a team that lost to the Raiders at home and lost ugly in 2023. A lot of people were like, Kansas City, not looking good. They went on to win the Super Bowl, right? The Cincinnati Bengals, right? They made a magical run in 2021 before they lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. They weren't like a 14-win team. They were the Bengals, right? They were kind of came out of nowhere in a lot of people's minds. Even the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers led by Tom Brady, they weren't exactly, when they won the Super Bowl in 2020, they did not exactly have a phenomenal season. They were, I think, 8-5 at one point. A lot of people were wondering if they missed the playoffs. They got hot, got in, ran the table, won the title. Getting into the dance is the biggest and most important step. Injury-filled season, depleting a chance to win 2 or 3 more games. Look, the reality is, and I hate to do this what-if game, but if Parsons and Prescott aren't hurt, right, I think there is a decent chance. Let's do this. Parsons, Prescott, and Deron Bland. Because those were the 3 ones I think that affected a lot of the Cowboys' fortunes. They beat Washington the final game of the season. They beat Cincinnati. I know Parsons was there, but imagine if Prescott had played that game. They beat Cincinnati, so there's 2 more wins right there. And I honestly think when it's all said and done, if Parsons plays and Bland plays against Atlanta or San Francisco, I think there's a chance they win one of those 2 as well, right? So you're looking at a 10-win Cowboys team, maybe into the playoffs. You got a chance. Right? I'm not saying that would have happened, and I'm not saying they would have won the Super Bowl, but it does matter, guys. Getting into the dance, getting those 2 or 3 incremental wins is huge. It does really matter. It's not an excuse. Like the Lions fans will tell you, right? They kept them out of a potential Super Bowl. They were the best team in the NFC, better than Philly during the regular season. Injuries on defense knocked them out. Injuries do matter. It's important to have depth. It's important to plan for that. Again, 2 or 3 incremental wins really matters. All right, this is from another one at Timothy Rob with a 1 in between the RO and the BB. He posted, Turpin in A-gap scares the bejeebus out of me, Parkland Hospital. Talking about Devontae Turpin had a long run in terms of an A-gap inside run during training camp on practice before the padded practice on Sunday. Yeah, I think one thing to consider, right, just because it's an inside run doesn't necessarily mean it's like a power old school run. Now, I don't know the context specifically of that Turpin run, but think of like the old like draw play, like they used to run with Julius Jones way back in the day. That was incredibly effective. Or like some other inside trap plays. Just because it's an inside run doesn't mean it's like goal line short yardage, right? You could be in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers with Turpin as the running back. So think about it from an offensive perspective or defensive perspective. If the team huddles up with 3 wide receivers, Turpin and Jake Ferguson, they're thinking, oh, pass, 5 wide. So they have 6, 7 DBs on the field. They have their pass rushers on the field. And then Turpin lines up as a running back and you give him the football up the middle. Suddenly he's running up the middle against a passing defense, a quarter or dime kind of defense. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but there's a chance what the Cowboys are setting up. I agree with you. I don't like Turpin, base defense, short yardage, letting him run on the football right up the middle. That could be a problem. But I will say this, in the right schemes, in the right situations, allowing him to attack downhill with the full field in front of him, not just pigeonholing him to a sideline, is really, really smart because he's at his best. We see it in the return game when he can react to what he sees in front of him and have the whole field at his disposal. All right, Jeremy Anello 4629 said Mingo played for Ole Miss, not LSU. Yeah, you're 100% correct talking about Jonathan Mingo. He was from Ole Miss. Got him confused with Barkevius Mingo, a defensive player. He played at LSU. 100% my bad. Thank you for correcting me. Which, by the way, if I get something wrong, put it in the comment sections. I will give you a shout out for correcting me. I try to get it right. I don't always get it right, obviously, which for that correction. So again, thank you very much, Jeremy, for correcting that. I really appreciate it. All right, that's all the stuff I have for you today. Again, any questions or comments, put them in the comment section below, and we'll get to them on our next video. And hopefully, a little bit better injury news over the course of today's events for the Cowboys. But things are still trending overall in the right direction, working our way through training camp. So until next time, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.